Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make some amazing cinnamon raisin bread. It's light, fluffy, and full of cinnamon sugar with raisins to top it off, and it's great for a breakfast on the go. So let's get started. I've got everything ready for my cinnamon raisin bread. To start off, I'm going to take 208 grams of water. This is warm water, but it's not hot. You want to make sure that's a key thing. Make sure it's not hot. To my water, I'm going to add 5 grams of instant yeast. I'm just going to sprinkle it right on top. To my mixer, I'm going to add 1 egg, which is 40 grams, 8 grams of salt, 40 grams of sugar, 2 grams of cinnamon, 64 grams of raisins, 416 grams of bread flour. Now with your water and yeast, you just want to make sure that everything is dissolved as far as the yeast. So give it a little shake if everything hasn't quite gotten hydrated yet. This is instant yeast, so we don't have to wait for it to bloom. My yeast is ready, and I'm going to pour this on top of all of that flour. I have a spoon, and to make sure that the yeast doesn't go straight down to the bottom, I'm going to pour it onto the spoon, and that'll help it gently spread out throughout the rest. I've got my dough attachment on my mixer, and now I'm going to mix this until it's a smooth ball. Now that the dough is starting to come together, I'm going to go ahead and add one bit at a time of 40 grams of unsalted butter. Now that the dough is smooth and the butter is incorporated, I'm going to increase the speed. I was previously mixing it on about a 2 or a low speed. Now I'm going to go to about a medium to a high speed. All right, so we're going to mix that for about 2 minutes. Now that my dough is done mixing, I'm going to take a bowl and just spray a little pan spray on there, very light, and then I'm going to transfer my dough into that bowl so that it can rise. When getting your dough out, if you have a wetter dough, spray a little pan spray on your hands or wet your hands and the dough won't stick to your hand. Now I've got my dough in my bowl. I'm gonna lightly spray the top, very lightly. I have some cling wrap that I'm gonna put right over top. You wanna cause the bowl to have a lot of warmth inside so that it can activate that yeast and get going. So we're gonna cover this. We're gonna leave it in here until it's double in size. And the reason you spray the top with pan spray is so that when it rises, if it gets close to your saran wrap, it won't stick. So you can not do that, but then you'd have to peel it off. So depends on you. I'm gonna leave this in here for an hour. So I'm gonna set time on here, time in. I'm gonna put that at 2 p.m. And the time that I would like it out is gonna be 3 p.m. I'll see y'all in a minute. My dough has been rising for about an hour and it has doubled in size. I'm gonna go ahead and take the plastic off and dump it out on my surface. Before I do, I'm gonna lightly sprinkle some flour down. Just lightly punch it down with your fingers. Get a little flour on them so it doesn't stick. You can even sprinkle a little flour on top here, not too much. Very nice dough, it's very soft, very light. You can use a rolling pin for this, but with it being so lax, I don't see the point. If it's giving you a little trouble, let it rest for longer. This is about 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, but you just want enough just to brush it on. You want just enough butter to cover the entire thing. Now I have some cinnamon sugar here. With the cinnamon sugar, this is just a half a cup of sugar and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm gonna generously sprinkle this on top. Now you just want to spread it out as evenly as you can. Now as you can see here, I've got some light bits and I've got some dark bits. The lighter bits are the cinnamon sugar that has not had contact with the butter yet. So ideally you would like for a majority of it to all be dark. Pat it in really, really well. And really make sure that you get the edges. You don't want to be cutting your bread and there's no cinnamon sugar on the end pieces. All right, now from the end closest to me, I'm going to begin to roll it. You always want the beginning of your roll to be nice and tight so that the rest will roll properly. Roll it very generously. Every now and then make sure it's tight. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it very loose either because that could give you air bubbles. When you get to the end, you've got this lip here. Make sure that the lip comes out around the edges. And then pull the lip tight and pinch. Now with this seam, you want to put this on the bottom of your pan. You don't want the seam facing up because then when it bakes, it will open and cause you to have a big seam on top. So you want this to go on the very bottom of your pan. I'm gonna roll this over and I'm just gonna slightly scrunch this together. I've got two loaf pans right here, and the reason I use two is because usually the standard store pans that you buy at like Walmart or Kroger's, a lot of times they are thinner and you don't want to risk that the bottom of your bread will burn. So I always will stack mine. Now of course, if you know that your pans are thick enough and they don't usually burn your bread, don't worry about that step. But if you find that when you make bread that the bottom sometimes comes out really crispy and dark, that means your pan is too thin. And you can easily fix that by just doubling up pans. Now I'm just gonna spray my pan with some pan spray. Now I'm just gonna gently put my bread in here. Now right now it looks a little bit stuffed. It looks like a little sausage in a very tight case, but that's okay. Now I'm gonna set this aside in a warm place. I like to put my breads on top of the oven and let them rise with some saran wrap on top. Same thing as we did before. Give it a light spray on top. That's it. And then cover it with the saran wrap and I'll see you in an hour. So I have my bread. It has risen quite a bit. Take the plastic wrap off. I just have this tea towel over it to help condense some of that heat down in there, keep it nice and warm so that it can rise and that yeast can be happy. And I had some plastic wrap on top of it, of course, as you saw earlier. Now it has risen quite a bit and I've got a little bit of an S pattern. It doesn't really matter if it didn't fit exactly in here, as long as it's in the pan and it's up to the level height of the pan, you're gonna have a nice tall loaf, which is nice. In here, I've got a little bit of egg wash. I've got 1 egg and 1 tablespoon of water, and I'm gonna very generously brush this on. Make sure you don't have any dry spots because you want this whole thing to be nice and golden brown after all this hard work we've done. Now it looks like I have a little bit of air pockets right here on the surface. So these, I'm just gonna pop. These do not count in leavening our bread. And the delicious rise that we're gonna have later in the oven, those are just gonna be surface blotches. So we're just gonna very gently just pull the dough to let that air out. And the main air is still inside, which is gonna give us a beautiful, fluffy, tall loaf. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven until it comes out golden brown. It's gonna be at least an hour, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about the time. Instead, I would be looking for the color. Just because the timer says it's done doesn't mean it's done. So you wanna make sure that it's always the color of what you're looking for, which is a golden brown here, and I'll see you guys in a few. So my bread is out of the oven. It baked at 350 degrees until it was golden brown. It looks absolutely delicious. It's got some great marbling throughout and lots of raisins. Now go ahead and try a piece. You can really taste the cinnamon. It's nice and sweet from the raisins as well as that extra sugar we added. And it's got a great texture. I love this for breakfast. I love to put some, toasted, put some butter on top. And my mom absolutely loves it. She has been asking me to make this for weeks now. And I have been so busy that I haven't had a chance. So this loaf is definitely gonna go to her and she's gonna love it. So I hope you guys like this recipe as much as I do.
If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for another video. I post every Friday. Thanks for watching.